All right. Good evening. Do we have anybody here in the chat? I know there's some lag. We were having some issues with the chat earlier. Hopefully it's okay.
Yep. Everything's sounding good so far, Steve.
So we look good?
Things looking good, sounding good.
Sweet.
Also, we got the Irish connection.
Yes, we do.
Hello, everybody.
Good evening, sir. So we'll give it a few minutes to get everybody situated and whatnot.
Ooh, Steve, when I joined, I literally had just woke up from a nap.
You lazy ass. I swear. Hello, Defuck today. Welcome. Welcome. I don't know if you noticed, but Irish Connection is here with us this evening. Here's Hero. That's good. We got a maiden out there hiding out somewhere. Very nice. Very nice. It seems the chat is working everywhere it's supposed to. Should be able to post comments on both locations on Facebook, YouTube, hopefully. And we will just kind of go from there. I will say, and I posted it briefly on Facebook, it's not like a really big issue at the moment because I'm not really sure how I'm going to approach it or how I'm going to position it, but there is now an actual retail Warzone only YouTube. And what I'm going to try to do is take, some of the podcasts that we do and break them up in like 15-minute segments. And so they'll, people can go through and actually listen, in snippets instead of having to go through the full thing. The interesting thing was, I looked at it and somebody actually sat and watched the entire unemployment one, because actually I'm putting the full live streams up too as well. I've only loaded the last two, and somebody actually watched 48 minutes of that, so that was impressive. So good times there. Who else we got out there? Say hello. I see 3 on Twitch, 2 on YouTube. Who we got?
I know I count as one of the ones on Twitch.
Okay, well then cool. We're good there. All right, so let's get started. So tonight we are going to talk about different types of managers, different types of management style, how they can affect a building, and kind of go through the difference between a boss and a leader. I think it's an important thing for people to understand. And hey, look, we're not going to kid ourselves here. If we've been a manager, we've all at one point in time haven't been the best manager, especially if you started out young, and you were in this whole, it's been my experience that most people that start out when they first get their, their store or whatnot, they're kind of like, ooh, let's just run them in the ground. This is my ship and whatnot. And I think as you mature and you get older and work through the business, that you become a better human and a better mentor toward your staffs, and your opinion changes on how you deal with people. And it's fairly vital. I mean, you need it. So what we're going to do is the very first slide is know the traits. Okay. And here's what we got. So on the left, we've got difference between boss versus leader. A boss drives employees. A leader coaches them. A boss depends on authority. A leader depends on goodwill. A boss inspires fear. A leader generates enthusiasm. A boss says I. A leader says we. A boss places blame for the breakdown. A leader fixes the breakdowns. A boss knows how it's done. A leader shows how it is done. A boss uses people. A leader develops people. A boss takes credit. A leader gives credit. A boss commands. A leader asks. And a leader also says, let's go. So we'll cover those pretty much in detail as we go along. And then I've got over on the right, 8 bad leadership traits. So these are the things that kind of show you that they're not a leader. Poor communication means they do not update their teams. They're a poor listener. They're difficult to reach. Their vision and targets are unclear. Self-centeredness. They're arrogant and egotistic. They lack emotional intelligence and empathy. They do not like authority questioned. They do not like it when others are successful. Another bad leadership trait, lack of praise and feedback. Gives no or very little feedback. Does not praise others for achievements. Is more critical towards others. Little time for regular reviews. They're also uncommitted. They lack enthusiasm. They lack or lose focus easily. They're disengaged with the culture and organization. They lack self-reflection, which means they fail to learn from mistakes. They're very stubborn, and they do not challenge themselves. This is a big one here. Their lack of integrity. They use fear and guilt to motivate. They blame others for their own mistakes. They fail to hold people to account, and they fail to keep their promises. And that lack of integrity is a direct indictment to the lack of trust, which, fails to involve others in decisions, does not ask others for advice, micromanages, dictates instead of being empowering, and typically these people are also unsupportive. They're unavailable to others. They fail to provide adequate training. They do not facilitate growth and development of the team. So, there's that. Irish connection. What would you say about that?
I think that's very accurate. I wouldn't disagree with any of that. I would think that in general, a boss is probably a failed leader. Because I think I started off as a boss. I'm more of a leader now, and I think the people that get stuck in with the bad traits that you would label as bosses are probably just people that didn't have the leadership qualities in them. They were either weren't able or weren't willing to learn them. And we're all familiar with that type.
Exactly. Alex, what you got?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. I've definitely had bosses in my lifetime of retail, and I've definitely had true leaders. Our Alabama friend, great example of a leader.
Yep.
My previous boss, great example of boss. But to further go on what you had to say, Connection, because, it's hard to, whenever I was getting into leadership, when I first became a supervisor, it's definitely hard because there are much less leaders out there than bosses, So it's like hard to get into that because you learn everything that you know from bosses, and you have to develop yourself into a leader from good people.
That's correct. And Irish Connection hit the nail on the head. I think really and truly, most people, when they start out in management, you start out as a boss. And, it's really no fault of anybody at that point in time. It's just kind of like the mindset, and you think that's what you're supposed to do. But where, like he said, some people aren't cut to be a leader, and they don't mature into it. And, everybody starts out as a boss, but your maturity is what takes you in to being a leader. And, being a leader also, a lot of it comes from experience. When you're a boss, and if you start to develop leadership skills, you're able to self-reflect and realize the things you did wrong. And you're able to pass those lessons on to people that are under you throughout your career. Let's see. Look at the chat here. There's a reason the saying is lead by example. Correct, hero. The fuck today. Do you feel like company policies and politics cause leaders to turn into bosses? Yes and no. I think lots of times district managers and above forget where they came from, and maybe something's not going on in the store like they want, and the message they're giving the store managers is to be a boss and to be stern and to rule by fear. You know, everything that the company will preach to you as far as leadership goes, your district manager will look you straight in the face and say, don't worry about that. You do what I tell you to do. We want you to, like, you know, hellfire and brimstone your staff to get them to perform. So there's a huge disconnect, and that's why there's such a disconnect between like human resources and like managers in the field and district managers and RVPs, because the human resource side, they're all for the go team, rah, rah, rah leadership thing. And the RVPs and DMs don't want nothing to do with that shit. They'll only go on that if they feel like they're going to get in trouble for something the store manager did. But half the time they're the ones that's, you know, forcing that behavior. What would your experience in that be, Connection? Have you experienced similar?
Yeah, actually, I've seen and worked for companies where they actually, it was nearly their business model to employ exclusively bosses, because these would be places with high staff turnover, where basically what they do to both staff and managers would be to burn them out. So they, you get them in when they're young, and you work them, overtime. They don't get to see their family or enjoy any quality of life. And 2 or 3 years later, they're gone. They're burnt out and they're gone. But that works for the company sometimes because they just replace people very quickly. So bosses in that environment are nearly encouraged, and it's a very toxic environment and an unhealthy environment to be in. And it's something that I hope changes in the kind of retail culture over time. And I think it is actually, in general, there's a slow movement away from being henpecked and abused and belittled on a daily basis with a view to increase productivity.
Wow, that must be great over there, because here in the States, it's still just beat the shit out of them, to be honest with you. I mean,
Okay.
Yeah, so good for y'all over there. That's a wonderful thing. Number one thing is trying at least to balance it out. If you have negative feedback for employees, try to encourage them about something they're good at. Russell says, I think you kind of got to be both depending on the employee at hand, if that makes sense. Yes, you do have to be a boss sometimes, but it also, it's a different hat, so to speak. You're not really being the boss, you're being stern. And it still matters, how you handle that. The whole adage, you catch more flies with honey than you do vinegar. I mean, that comes into play there as well. Iron Maiden says they get to work regardless, and they can replace people who decide they don't want to be abused anymore. Exactly. So, going into the next little thing here, I found this today and I thought this would be interesting. And if anybody saw what I posted on Facebook, what does an Irishman and the Lion King have in common? You're about to find out. So, the Lion King holds a special place in my heart, and I just found this fitting when I saw it. So, be prepared. This is gonna be an interesting one. And when you look at it this way, it's Russell, it's very similar to that conversation we had about how retail staffs and management were like the Walking Dead. So, here we go. Hakuna Matata, bitches. All right. 7 types of managers in The Lion King. The Lion King is a film about leadership. While the Pride Lands may be known for its abundance of wildlife, it also has its fair share of leaders, each with their own distinctive style. Commanding the savannah is one thing, but how would these characters operate in a modern-day workplace as managers? We chose 7 leaders from The Lion King to examine further. The source is vengage.com. Like I said, I don't know how this flew on my radar. I just happened to find it, and I thought it was cute, and I thought it was appropriate. So we shall continue. And here we go. Mufasa. While others search for what they can take, a true king searches for what he can give. Mufasa was known as the transparent traditionalist. His traits were dutiful, decisive, straight shooter, confident, old school, effective, leads by example. His pros were respects and values all his team members, regardless of their seniority. Provides constructive feedback. Holds himself and his team members to high standards. Effectively manages company resources. His negatives. Fails to address toxic or disengaged employees. Would likely be reluctant to adopt more modern workplace perks such as flex hours or casual dress codes. See, I told you this would be interesting. Next, Simba. I know what I have to do. Simba is the visionary leader. Traits: innovative, open-minded, inclusive, energetic, transformational, self-reflective. The positives: passionate leader who inspires devotion from his team members. Is committed to professional growth. Not afraid to listen to new ideas and try new things. His negatives: has previously displayed defeatist tendencies, and sometimes dwells on past mistakes instead of learning from them and moving on. Okay? Next. Rafiki. Everybody is somebody. Traits: forward-thinking, unconventional, creative, supportive, accessible, democratic. The pros to Rafiki were: views failure as a learning opportunity. Motivates his team members to continually learn, grow, and excel. Has an open door policy, never too busy to mentor a team member. His negative: unconventional teaching methods may clash with more corporate office cultures. Now, let's be honest. How many of you, as I'm going through these, as we got to Rafiki, thought about Rafiki hitting Simba with his staff, saying it's all in the past? I did. Next.
Yeah.
Scar. Life's not fair, is it, my little friend? The ineffective autocrat. Traits: toxic, biased, short-sighted, adversarial, disgruntled, hands-off. The pros to being Scar: ambitious and resilient. The cons: discriminates against those who are different from him, views employees as dispensable, causes morale and productivity to plummet due to his abysmal leadership skills. Good stuff. Next.
We've all had a Scar before.
Yep. Sarabi. If you were half the king Mufasa was, Sarabi is the employee advocate. Traits: outspoken, empathetic, data-driven. Pros: not afraid to stand up for her employees, even at great personal risk. Cool, calm, and collected in the face of adversity. Cons: lacking office diplomacy skills. Next. Zazu. Checking in with the morning report. Traits: detail-oriented, hardworking, loyal, insecure, and bureaucratic. Pros: is wholly committed to his organization and teammates. His attention to detail ensures that tasks are completed on time. Cons: insecure in his own leadership abilities, micromanaging tendencies. Yeah. And then my favorite one. Are you aching for some bacon? Yep. Pumbaa, the strategic silo buster. Maybe he'll be on our side. Traits: optimistic, devoted, collaborative, team player. Pros: eagerness to work with people from other departments. Positive can-do attitude, which motivates everyone around him. Loyal to his team. Cons: too much fun, likely to struggle as a disciplinarian. And there you go. So does any
on the Pumbaa boss, those to me are some of the worst kind. Because yeah, they may be fun to work for and everything, but when you literally just have to struggle as a hard worker and your boss just doesn't ever bother to try to rectify any of it, that's when it gets tough.
I think the saddest,
if that makes
I
any
think the
sense.
saddest part is that the amount of scars we've all had to deal with.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So Mr. Connection, what was your take on The Lion King?
What you just talked about, or the movie?
Well, we could do either. I love the movie. No, what we just talked about.
All right. That's an interesting analogy. I like it. Because it is, I suppose, a story about various different types of leadership. And I think it's pretty accurate. I think the characters match up with the traits pretty well that they described. It's difficult to hear. I'm sure everyone was trying to pick one out to which one you most identify with. It's interesting. I have my own ideas. I wonder what my employees think.
Well, I think for some of us that have been in it a very long time, I think we encompass a lot of those qualities from different ones. I'll tell you right now, Alex, I think you'll agree. I had a whole hell of a lot of Pumbaa in me, didn't I?
I mean, sort of, but at the same time, you weren't afraid to hold people accountable.
No,
like, that's the difference.
And
because working for you was nice, whereas I've had to work for a straight up Pumbaa before that was just a goofball. Like, great guy, but at the same time, like, it just made my job so much worse because everybody else could just get away with anything, but I couldn't. Like,
yeah.
I was the only one being held accountable.
What I learned from the Lion King thing, to be honest with you, is the ultimate manager would be the one that can channel most all the positives from all the characters. Because there's a lot of things in each of these characters that I did. And I'll be honest with you, I really couldn't, I could not myself go through and like say, okay, I'm that one. I could be like, all right, well, I've got part of that and I do part of that. And I'm kind of a clown, so I've got part of that. And, when I was quote unquote in my prime, when I wasn't so completely burnt that I didn't care. And, I think that it's hard to like classify somebody who's got all the good qualities, whereas it's really, really easy to classify the scars and the negative Nancy's and whatnot. I mean, and that's the sad part is, one thing I want to talk about as we go through, and we'll get both of your guys, take on this, is management and leadership accountability. Like, when you've got managers, key carriers, supervisors, it doesn't matter. If you're in a position of authority where you're bossing people around and just, you're not asking them if they can do something, you're telling them to do it. Let's say, somebody's scheduled off. Instead of asking, hey, are you able to work such and such day? You just schedule them and tell them they're going to be there. But that person, and I think we all could agree that we've all worked with managers that have been do as I say, not as I do. And I think we're starting to see with the labor issue that companies have let that get out of hand in a lot of locations, and they've let managers run wild and rule by fear and whatnot. And that's part of the problem why people aren't being able to hire anybody right now. They've been burned so much by that personality type because there's far more of them than there should be. And there's no management accountability. Like, I can vouch for the fuck today. I mean, that gal works hard. She a little Can she be a little rough? Yeah. But she will reward you for doing a good job. And she will be loyal to you, if you do the things you need to do. And whereas some people would see her not that way because they refuse to self-reflect and realize they're just being fuck-ups and they're not wanting to participate. So, I'm going to start with you, Alex. I want you to give us an example of a scar.
I thought I told you to
I knew that.
fully have these.
I knew that was coming. All right, go ahead.
Fully have these pallets broken down.
But hold up. You can do all that. That's great. But I want you to explain why this person was a scar.
It's actually not who you think it is, Steve.
Oh, wow. Okay.
This person was a scar because not only were they stealing, not only were they literally committing a crime behind everyone's back, you got blamed. You got ruled by fear. You got told that you better have this done by X o'clock or else. You got told all that. You never got an example, because when I asked said person for an example, because I cried to said person. I was like, this is too much for me. I'm being a leader for the first time in my entire life. I just kind of got thrown into this job. It's when I was supervisor, Steve.
If Felmart?
Nope.
Okay.
I was never a supervisor at Felmart.
Oh, that's right. You gave people like keys. Anyway.
But, yeah, the Wally World. And anywho, yeah. Because I asked said person, I was like, how do I lead these people? Because, I can't get them to move faster to save my life. And, on top of that, we got a truck to unload, stock it. We got to set up everything. We got to work what first shift just left behind, because, they'll do it. They've got nothing better to do. Yeah.
I think a really good point that you make there is the amount of people who get thrown into a leadership role with no experience doing it. And the people that are throwing into it have no desire to train you. They've got an opening to fill. They're paying you a little bit extra money, dangling the carrot to make you take the position. And there again, that's poor leadership on their part.
But see, here's the catch, Steve. Now, that original person was like, I'm a visionary, and, I can see that you would be great for that position. And I'm like, why not? I'll try it. And, I got offered the terms of 4 days a week, 10-hour shifts, blah, blah, blah. But as soon as I said, yes, I do, I accept this job, that turned into, I never said 4 days. I never said 4 10s. I said 5 8. You got to be here 5 days. And I'm like, okay. Whatever. And I never even got my pay, neither, because they was just making me do it, without my pay.
Right.
That got rectified by a certain friend of ours.
Oh,
thank God.
That's what it should.
Yep.
Okay, connection.
That finally got rectified.
Sweet.
I just got one more thing to say. But when I would ask said person for just, what do I do? How do I lead these people? I never got any kind of an example, and I just got threatened that, you just better be better. You just better do this. And,
wow.
Yeah. That's kind of when I threw in the towel.
I don't blame you
on that job.
I don't blame you at all. What about you, connection?
An example of scar.
Yes.
Is it? Yeah. I've come across a lot of scars. Typically, though, they're actually not at the top of the food chain, at least in my experience. If you're working especially in a larger retailer and there's multiple managers there, departmental managers maybe, usually the scar is the kind of ambitious one that wants to be the big boss or get that big promotion, and they're the loudest ones in the room because they want the attention on them to show that that they have they've got more bravado than any of the other managers, or that they can push staff further than any other managers. Now, sometimes that does work, unfortunately, and the Scars do end up in higher positions, which is quite toxic. But I have had I worked with one that you would say that they were a boss, definitely not a leader. But did you ever hear the phrase "empty vessels make the loudest noise"?
Yes.
Okay, well, it's essentially that they would quite literally, their voice would be 2 or 3 octaves higher than anyone else in the room at all times. They would constantly be moving stock around the floor that didn't need to be moved around, just to be seen to be doing something. Always busy, always pushing staff, always keeping people behind, and henpecking staff on a regular basis, and the whole place was just toxic. Everyone hated working there. And as soon as that manager got that promotion that they wanted, they left the store, and everything went back to an almost a calm. There was order restored, and people were happier, and the store did better. That's the weird thing, is that for retail, we often focus on the bottom line. I don't know why they don't chase the bottom line more, and kind of tie it up to the Scars of the world, because I don't think Scars make the most money in at least in retail.
No, they do not. They make the most mess and most chaos. I am fairly fortunate that I have not worked for a lot of Scars in my career. And, looking back at that, yeah, it's that's amazing to me that I didn't have to deal with a lot of it. And, being in management for so long, all my Scars, were district managers or regional VPs. I will say that the last big box job I had, the district manager I had, the first one, was not necessarily as much of a Scar, 100%, because on the surface, dude was, a nice guy, but he definitely was a throw somebody under the bus for his own insufficiencies kind of person. Alex, when we were working at Felmart, that lady, she was a Scar.
Yeah.
But the one thing that I have found about Scars is that when you reach a certain age and you've worked in the business long enough that it's kind of broken you in a way, that you'll find yourself much more likely to go toe to toe with the Scar than let the Scar tell you what to do. And, in speaking with Alex about Felmart, that individual there, I think was a Scar, but didn't realize that she was. And everybody was so scared of her. No one ever made any kind of motion or hubbub to kind of put her in her place to knock her out of it. And,
takes a revolution to overthrow the dictator.
Yeah, and then here I come, and I put up with it. I'm like, yeah, this lady's a bitch, and da 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 da. And then finally one day, I just snapped. I'm like, you're not gonna talk to me like that anymore, and just went off on this woman. I mean, like, completely just exploded. And all of a sudden, she changed, and it's because nobody ever gave her that kind of pushback ever before. And I think there's a lot of Scars out there that if the right person got a hold of them, they could be saved, because no one has the balls to, like, kick them in the stomach and say, hey, look, you're an asshole. Let's fix this. They've gotten away with it so long.
I will say, Steve, that specific person we're talking about, honestly, she wasn't the worst boss I've ever had. Like, she's rough, but I mean, she wasn't like the worst.
You could be a Scar, but it doesn't mean you're going to be the worst. You can still be a Scar.
Because, I mean, she did have her redeeming moments, ish. But,
that's debatable.
It is debatable, but I mean, in comparison to some things I've seen, yeah.
So, You know, the Lion King thing was just like, conjecture to get us talking or whatnot. Now I want to get into the nitty gritty ugly shit. All right. So I hope.
Oh, we ain't even gotten to the bad stuff
No, we
yet.
haven't. We're going there right now. Right
Boy.
the fuck now. So I hope y'all ready. All right. So what I want to do here is I'm going to go through some things I hate. And then I'm going to pass it to Connection and let him go through different things that managers have done that or said that he hates. And then the same thing for Alex. I guess you would call it our pet peeves. They have no idea that this was what was going to happen. So I'm just kind of throwing everybody under the bus here. So, pet peeves for me. All right. Been doing this a long time. You know, when you're a store manager, if you're in, depending on what kind of chain you're in, you could be in a chain where you've got 13 or 14 stores, within 30 minutes of you, in your district or whatnot. Things that drive me fucking bonkers with managers, supervisors, key carriers, whatever. Number one, lack of accountability and throwing people under the bus. I cannot stand that. There are so many managers that are over departments. They might be a shift supervisor. They may be a store manager that never once will take any accountability for their lack of leadership skills or lack of supervision because something, a big boss comes in or whatnot. Oh, well, this end cap looks like shit. Well, I told Sally to do that. Oh my God, that shit pisses me off so bad because guess what? If you're the manager over that department or you're the manager over that store, your name is attached to that shit. No wonder nobody wants to work for you. You could have told somebody that had never built an end cap ever before, hey, go build this end cap. You never went back and looked. They've never done it before. It could look like a Jenga tower that fell over. And you never looked. You never followed up. And that person who built that end cap all of a sudden thinks that's the standard. Your boss comes in and blows you out because the end cap looks like a Jenga stack that's been knocked over. And you're like, I told her to do the end cap, but you never showed her how to do the fucking end cap.
I've got something to add to that.
Hold up. You'll get your turn.
Oh boy.
So that kind of shit, I hate that. I think it's a poor showing when you're a manager and your bosses come in and they pick out things that are wrong that you say, well, I told so-and-so to do this. I guess they didn't. I told so-and-so to do it. And we've discussed this before. If whoever's walking with you doesn't kind of log in their head that, oh, they're this kind of manager, then they suck too, because that should be a big red flag. It should be, okay, I'll get with my team. We'll get it fixed. I'm sorry. Or there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, you know what? I missed that. I didn't go check it. Most DMs, if they're decent, will be cool with that. They'll be like, okay, just make sure it doesn't happen again. Different phrases that I've heard from managers over the years. And this one I have heard my entire career. From when I worked in the grocery business at 18 years old, all the way up until my last job. I swear to God, if I had $1 for every time some lazy, non-want to be accountable fucker said, I served my time, I could have retired 10 years ago. That statement is the most arrogant, misinformed thing anybody could say. And if anything, it's an indictment to the fact that you have no idea or no desire to be a leader, because you look at it as like prison, like time served. It's like, I've served X amount of years. I don't have to do that shit anymore. But by God, you'll take all the credit for everybody else's fucking work. God, I hate that. Absolutely hate it. And I've heard it my entire career. I mean, just about everywhere I've worked, ever, I've heard somebody make that statement. And it's like, man, y'all suck. Nobody, and these same people will complain. Well, I can't hire anybody. Or this, so and so, they quit on me. Or so and so, they went and reported me to corporate. Because you're an asshole. That's why. And it's lost on them. They don't get it. They're just like, they're clueless. Like if you went to them and broke it down, like if you had slides like we have here for the Lion King, and you gave them visual aids as to why every bit of that statement is wrong, they'd look at you like a deer in the headlights and still think like, I didn't do anything wrong, because they don't know. Just irritating. The other one.
I had to hear that one.
The other one. Bouncing between managers to get the result that you want. You go to one supervisor. They say, no, you do it like the store manager says. You go to the next supervisor. They say, do it like store manager says. Finally, you come across some supervisor says, oh, do it however you want to do it. And you take the easy way out. Hate that shit too. Managers that feel like they're better than everybody. You know, the amount of managers I've worked for that act like that they were God, that you could run, that all of us could run circles around no matter what. Because you never saw them do any work except, you know, doing curls with their coffee cup. The amount of managers walking around with coffee, God bless it. So, those are some things I hate. Managers don't back you up. Yeah. Okay. Connection. Your turn. Pet peeves.
Okay, well, you covered quite a few right there.
I know.
Now, one pet peeve I suppose I would have would be observation skills, because I have met lots of managers that sort of develop like tunnel vision, that they might focus in on merchandising, or they focus in on facing things off, whatever case. But there could be a small fire in the corner of the shop and they wouldn't notice. Huh. That sometimes, because I sort of try and take a step back and look at the big picture, as much as possible. And you'd be surprised the amount of managers, supervisors, and key holders that I have come across that just lack the most basic observation skills, such as making sure, like quite literally sometimes, that you've opened all the doors, that or like, because they're so focused on doing or one or two particular jobs, like they might face off a particular aisle, but they forgot to put the trash out. And now it's piling, or that type of thing. But that being unable to kind of take a deep breath and a step back and look at the bigger picture is quite annoying. And I suppose another pet peeve, I think we touched on this before in a previous episode, would be the managers that would kind of, they bark but they never bite when it comes to their superiors. So be it a DM, regional, whoever, that they're always bitching and moaning, oh, I would have said this, I would have said that, and if he comes down here, I'll tell him. And then they don't do it. And that is a pet peeve of mine, because it happens so often. Mm-hmm. I know people sometimes vent and they let off some steam, and that can be healthy. But I generally speaking do stand up to, now by the way, it has not always worked out in my favor, I'll tell you that. But in general, that's
how that works.
In general, I do stand up to my superiors, when necessary, and at least then, it shows I had put my money where my mouth was, kind of thing. But the amount of managers that it's just annoying. It's a pet peeve. I know they don't really mean it, but when they piss and moan for weeks about what the next time that he comes down here in a store visit, I'm going to, and then they do exactly. They come in and they roll out the red carpet and they kiss ass and they don't do anything that they said they would do. And as soon as that DM or regional or whoever it is leaves, that's when they get back on. Oh well, it's a peppy. It's annoying. It's not productive, and it also makes me look like an asshole when I do actually stand up to them. So that would be one or two pet peeves of mine. But you covered quite a lot, Steve.
Thanks.
I don't know if there's anything left for Alex.
But I have more. I'm waiting for Alex to get done.
Oh,
all right, Alex, your turn.
Oh boy, one of my pet peeves is this exactly, Steve. How many times have you heard this?
Let's hear it.
A manager ask you as an associate, how is it exactly I do this?
Oh,
What do you mean?
Bravo.
yeah, good one.
Good one.
What do you mean? Well, I came from the corporate office, and this is not how it says in the handbook. I never saw how to do a delivery.
That.
And I'm like, are you joking me right now? So you mean to tell me?
You may have won the stream, Alex. Continue.
You mean to tell me that me, just an hourly peon, I know how to do more than you do already? And just to reiterate on your point, Steve, I have heard with my own 2 ears, a store manager of mine, I told such and so to check this aisle while on a corporate walk. I told so and so to check this aisle and it wasn't done.
Yep.
What do you mean it wasn't done? You're the fucking store manager. Walk your fat ass up there and check it your damn self. Hold said person accountable instead of just being like, you just sell their soul to the devil, essentially. Just throw them under the bus. Fuck them. But at the same time, you don't have the balls to hold someone accountable. Hold them accountable. Hey, you was asked to do this in cap and you did not. What's the problem? Did you not have the resources? Did you not know how? Is it on me or is it on you? You know what I'm saying, Steve?
Yep. Oh.
That's what I hate. I hate leadership that don't hold other people accountable.
Cool.
And I hate being held accountable for literally no fucking reason. Because I'm like, I asked for help. I did not have the resources to finish my job. I begged for help. I asked for 12 hours and I just get told, I'll get back to you. And then, they run off and have the coffee in their hand, like you said.
Yeah. Well, here's one for you. I was working at a bargain store. All right. And this is another thing that really pisses me off because the amount of hours I've worked in my time at retail, that the hours that I wasn't scheduled, that I still worked. So I'm working one night and I get a phone call. Hey, Steve, do you have anybody you can send me? I'm like, no, I really don't. I mean, I might call somebody. Why? Well, at 5 o'clock, our closing cashier called out, and I told my manager because she was leaving, and she said I needed to find somebody because she wouldn't stay with me to help close the store because she's worked all day, and she just left. That's happened. See, we got somebody in the store by themselves. They went to their store manager and said, hey, look, so-and-so just called. They're not going to be able to come in. I've tried calling everybody. Nobody can come in. I think it's unsafe that I have to work by myself. Can you stay? And the manager says, no, I've already worked my 8 hours today. I'm going home. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your position is. If there is a manager out there watching this, and you're the kind of person who will leave and not cover the shift, you don't deserve to be a manager. If you never close, ever, you should never complain about anybody who doesn't want to, because you obviously do not lead by example, because you've obviously served your time. And you're not going to do anything that you just fucking don't want to do. And that shit pisses me off. Because guess what, ladies and gents? If you're one of those people, you don't deserve the money you make. You don't deserve the keys that you have. You don't deserve the title that you have. Because if you have decided that I'm a manager, I've served my time, I'm going to work exactly what I want to, and the rest of my team can fucking sink if somebody bails out, you are a piece of golden shit. And if there is anybody watching this who does that has enough balls to confront me on that, let fucking go. Because you will get eaten the fuck alive by this crowd.
Oh, yeah. Steve, I know this is irrelevant to retail, but I play the team captain role. My team, like the video game.
Video games do not matter in this, dude. Stop.
No,
Stop.
They don't. I'm just saying. I wouldn't let my team sink at all. I hold accountability. Right. And it's a fucking video game. So if I've got actual people's jobs on the line, I'm staying.
I mean, how many, like Connection and Alex, how many nights have you worked somewhere that you were woefully short-staffed because the manager bailed and decided they weren't going to help?
A lot.
Countless. Yeah.
And you know, I've done it.
You have.
You know.
You have stayed.
Because that's what you sign up for. Look, the money's not glamorous. None of us are going to buy mansions and shit, but you get a premium for being a manager. Sometimes, guess what, Toots? It sucks sometimes. Do not bark at your employees. Do not. See, here's the thing. Any manager that does that has zero authority to bitch about an employee one, regardless what they do. Because they don't care enough about their own business to pull up slack when they need to. Why the hell should anybody respect them and do the same? And people wonder why, oh, I don't want to work for this person. Alex, when we were at Failmart, we had people that worked in departments. I'm not going to mention any names, but they hated the department manager. Absolutely hated. And came to us, hey, I want to go work at a different department. And it wasn't just one. All of a sudden, you're like, well, shit, I can't transfer anybody because there won't be anybody in the department but the department manager. And the department manager never wants to fucking work when they're supposed to. And people wonder, oh, why does that person not want to work for me? Because you're an asshole. And you don't lead by example. You know, I've had managers be like, oh, I got to leave, man. I'm sorry. I can't close. I know you're shorthanded, but I got to go get a new battery, put in my car. Or I'm taking my boat out and my boat's getting waxed or whatnot. Or, oh, I got to get my eyelashes did. Or, oh, I've got a hair thing that's going on. Dude, every excuse in the book to be a shitty fucking manager. That's all that is. I don't care if you're getting your engine changed. I don't care if you're getting new tires. I don't care if you're getting new hair. I don't care if you're getting a weave. I don't care if you're getting contacts. If you're making excuses as to why you can't help out your staff, you're a piece of shit. Ta-da!
Yeah.
Connection.
It's gone.
You go ahead. Find something that's pissed you off and go off. The floor is yours, sir.
Is that Alex or me?
No, you Connection. Go right ahead.
I beg your pardon. All right. Well, okay. Well, I just want to make an observation there, just on what you were saying. I too have worked with many a manager that you would expect them to pick up the slack when things are tight, and they don't. Now, I think that you probably care about as much about retail as that manager that would go home early. I think the difference is you care about the team, and your personality is more kind of team friendly and kind of personable, and those people are just probably just assholes in general.
Yes.
It's the most important thing for me is the team. And I know I've also worked in places where especially when you go in and the kind of team is already there, there might not even be a team. It could be a very toxic environment, and that's really difficult, and it's almost impossible sometimes. But I suppose one or two things that have pissed me off. I have accidentally in the past become a bit of a fixer. So I was more flexible in where I would go and what I would do than a lot of managers. So corporate would send me to locations that were not doing so well on a short-term basis to basically try and turn the place around while they hired a competent manager to stay there on a permanent basis. And I suppose what pissed me off is you never get the full story from corporate. You never get the level of shit show that you're about to walk into. You get what you get told is, oh yeah, the manager there didn't work out, or supervisor, or whatever the case may be. Well, you just go in and just keep an eye on the place. Just keep it tipping over, and you go in there, and it's a mess. I mean, I remember one place I went into. The spare keys to the safe were locked in the safe. Okay, that's how bad this place was running.
Wow.
Okay, so in the event that you lost the keys to the safe, you had to get an angle grinder and about 2 weeks to get into the damn thing, And then what had happened, I remember on loads of different occasions, the places were so toxic to begin with when you walked in. First of all, everyone hated you because you were corporate's representative. You had no relationship.
Let me ask you something real quick. It's a real
yes,
short. How many times was it pitched to you as it's a great opportunity?
Oh, geez.
Yes. Okay.
Listen, I feel like I really do feel like this is retail AA when I hear that shit. I was that idiot. All right, I swallowed that when I was younger and dumber than I am now, and yeah, it's a great opportunity. And do you know what? Even then, I should have had the wherewithal to go. An opportunity for what? To do more shit like this? To get known as the guy that will drive for 2-3 hours to fucking store, to keep an eye on it, and turn things around. And most of the time you went there and it was just the most basic stuff. Like, everyone was disgruntled. Nobody liked working with anyone else. And even things like they hadn't replaced the lights that were blinking in the corner or off for the last 6 months. It was some of the these places used to always be, there was never anything terribly complex. It was some of the basic stuff like, guys, maybe don't put the spare keys to the safe in the safe.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe hoover the place more than once a week. It was always the most basic stuff. And then anyway, things would turn around, and you get you start getting the positive results in terms of turnover and customer feedback, and even sometimes the teams are always the most difficult because they were always against you from the beginning because, like I said, you're a corporate's rep. And and then corporate goes, great, that's fantastic. We have another idea. We have another opportunity, And, it took me way, way longer than it should have to realize what a little corporate prostitute I had become. And all I was doing was going around cleaning up other people's messes, like managers that had just gotten so disgruntled in their work that they couldn't fix a light bulb, quite literally. And and there's a lot of that in retail, but that was something that really, do you know what? It didn't anger me initially, but looking back on that is the thing that pissed me off the most, because it took me away from my my personal time and time with the family the most. I was on the road 6 days a week, and so sometimes I was staying overnight, for weeks on end. Under the guise of it's a great opportunity, when the reality was that the store was just let go to shit because of a story that I never really got the full story. I don't know what was going on there, but those are things looking back on it that I regret the most. Why the hell did I do that?
Yeah, when I worked for Jesus's Craft Store, well, I'll just say it because I'm not saying anything negative. I worked for Hobby Lobby, and that part of my career, like before that, And a little after, I kind of got that same reputation as like a fixer. You know, I took over the district manager's store, which was a shit show, and fixed it. And still to this day, I still believe that that one building I worked in, that I had assembled the best staff I've ever had in my career. No offense to anybody I've worked for, that I've worked with. Okay. That store was just, that was magic. Okay. What we did there was ridiculous. Okay. But then it became, well, hey, why don't you go to such and such store? Like Hero just posted in the chat, and I went with her on these things. Okay. You know, she would go to different stores and fix things for our district manager. And I would go with on like store sets and things like that. And then I was pitched an opportunity to go work at a store that I originally started at that was in a really bad part of town. That was like, hey, it's a great opportunity. We can do so much stuff and what, and actually we did. I got there. It took a little bit, but we turned it around and it was great. And then we changed DMs or whatnot. But you buy into this whole, hey, I did such a good job where I was at, because the situation with me, we had the store that I was at was perfect. I moved to a different store. Another manager took over the store that I was at. I drove by that store to go home, and I would go into that store and see the people that I hired, you know, tell me how bad it is, and the store starts to fall apart and look like shit. And you're like, man, I shouldn't have done it, man. I shouldn't have bought into this whole, you fixed everything kind of crap. I mean, and I agree with you, because it took when I worked for Hobby Lobby, that was where I worked the most hours ever. I mean, there were a couple of weeks where I'd had 90-hour weeks. You know, it was insane. And I didn't get anything out of it, but, you know, gray hair and bad knees and aggravation. But yeah, the whole fixer thing, man, it will F you up. Hero says, I visited every single store in that district at one point, but was never parked at my yeah, she was. I actually got her to move to Georgia. She originally started with me in a store working in the floral department. And all of a sudden, because she is just awesome, she's one of the best merchandisers you'll ever see. She's fucking fast as hell. All of a sudden, they're like, we're going to take her and we're going to put her on the road. And she'd come with these stories of shit in other stores. And you're like, oh my God. It was crazy. So,
yeah, like if I could just jump.
Go ahead.
Sorry,
no, go
sorry.
right ahead, sir.
If I could just jump in there, you brought up a very good point about you know, the great opportunity thing. I mean, like I think the corporations use that as almost like a currency in the same way as parents do Santa Claus.
Yes. Perfect.
I don't know why it took so long for me to kind of like I didn't have an epiphany moment. It just sort of gradually came on over time. What the hell am I doing? And you know, but here's my curiosity. It works. It shouldn't work.
But
it's a stupid idea. But it does work, because typically they give it to people who are enthusiastic and young, typically, and you know, a lot of the time they do buy into it. I did, and I can't explain. Looking back at it, there was nothing stopping me drawing the conclusion I have now. Then going, no, that's a stupid idea. Why would I do that? But, you know, this great opportunity to do what? They never explain it. They never elaborate beyond the great opopportunity.
No,
you know?
they don't.
Just, you know, it's a great opportunity to be what? You know, a gopher?
Yeah, basically,
you know,
you become Mr. Fix-It. You become the problem solver.
Yeah.
And looking at the chat real quick, fuck today, my career with the decor store was tarnished because the DM lied about the quote-unquote opportunity. And when my hands were tied trying to fix things, I was thrown under the bus because I couldn't fix it with my hands tied behind my back. Now, I'm going to vouch for her there. All right, so this individual was told, hey, we've got this opportunity at this store. She's like, okay, and she goes. And her and I start to get close. And she starts sending me pictures of this stuff. I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck? So this lady worked her ass off, uncovered all sorts of crazy shit that was going on in the store, wanted to fix it. It was never It was never an issue of being lazy or not wanting to do the job. But the person that was supposed to be her supporter, which was the district manager, when she would pose these things to him, did nothing for her. And his whole goal was to sweep stuff under the rug so it didn't get to his boss, which was Peter Griffin. All right. So, and because of it, she got blackballed. He threw her under the bus. He threw me under the bus. I mean, he's a piece of shit, you know? But you know, it's almost like no matter how much you do, how long you work, there's always more. It's a never ending cycle. It's a carousel ride that never ends. It is correct. Hero, FFO, fucking figure it out. That's what it is. It's what it is. So Alex, I'm going to step away for just a second. I want you to give your story. You ready?
Yeah.
All right. So your turn to talk about what we're talking about. Ready, set, go.
Talking about like the pet peeve stuff.
No, like, pet peeves or things you've heard or seen managers do that you think are terrible.
I mean, yeah, like I pretty much gave it like a minute ago about the saying that you seen. Like I told X and so to do Y to end cap and just completely just throwing people under the bus like that when you just don't take any accountability. Like that's really my biggest problem with a manager, to be completely honest. And just being, like Steve said, I've served my time. That's very, very, very annoying when you get told, I'm the manager. I'm not the one who does the work. You are. You're the hourly. Like, that to me is just unacceptable.
I think that's actually in a fair few industry. Like if you that would be in construction as well, for example. Like, you know, if you start off young in construction, you're the guy that drags heavy shit all over the place, and you know, you don't often see the kind of more senior people. It's in other industries as well, but I think in retail there's it's particular. It comes with a smugness from managers that have been there and have that attitude of like, you know, when you've done it for as long as I have, you know, you'll kind of think, I don't know, it's annoying, and it's they definitely take advantage of people who are willing to do work more.
Because I, as the worker, I don't expect my boss or my manager or my leader, I don't expect them to get out and do my job, what I signed up to do. You know, I don't expect that. But I also don't expect to just be thrown to the wolves, just, you know, with zero help, and you're just standing there.
No,
like
that's totally inappropriate.
And to be told, like I literally just said while you was gone, Steve, you're the worker, I'm the manager, you're the hourly.
Yeah.
Like that's.
Yeah, and see that whole thing sucks, man. I mean, it's that there are a lot of people who let titles and pay go to their head, and they think they're special, and they're really not. I mean, you know, I don't know what my future holds, but God forbid I have to work for somebody that's stupid, because my give a fuck meter is broken, and I will call people out left and fucking right and be able to, like, you know, actually back it up, you know, with actual fact. And I guess, you know, a large part of what we do here is, you know, we talk about how employees get shit on. And I think that managers and supervisors have, I mean, look, it's a hard job. All right. I mean, it's not, working in any kind of retail whatsoever is not easy, no matter what anybody says. But I think managers and supervisors have an obligation, especially when finding good help is hard right now, to build their teams up and do a little more to make them want to work for you. And it kills me. There's still people out there right now complaining, well, nobody wants to work for me, or everybody comes to work in this department, then they want to leave. And look, you're only going to make it easier on yourself by changing your ways and going from being a Scar to being a Mufasa. It's like, it's not working. I mean, which would you rather be? Would you rather be a decent supervisor or a manager who cultivates people that actually want to work for you and actually help you succeed, or be stuck in an endless cycle of, well, I got a whole new batch of people that don't know what they're doing? And then when you get a whole new batch of people that don't know what they're doing, you're going to complain that they don't know what they're doing, but you don't want to do anything to teach them what to do. I mean, that shit just pisses me off, man. There's so many people out there in positions of power and positions of authority that don't need to be, because they just can't do it. I mean, look, I know people that work in other businesses, like, all around. And I hear stories about, like, key carriers and managers and whatnot. Now, Alex, was I hard to work for?
Not
at all, right? But these
all.
people that I witness or I hear about doing these things would never survive under me, ever. Because I would reach a point where I'd make them cry, male or female, it doesn't matter, and send them on their way. And I guess that's the one thing that I've gained through all my years, and it probably isn't going to benefit me any here, from here on out, because you absorb, if you're a decent person, okay, a decent person, and you've worked in this business a very long time, and you absorb all the best traits of your mentors, there's something that happens to you that makes you kind of like a rebel to authority, because you've got a bullshit meter and you can spot it, and you are not afraid whatsoever to call somebody out on it. And a lot of these people that I know of, shit, I'd eat them for lunch, man. It'd be awful. And you know what? Connection, you as well, and Alex, even you as well. If you got cornered, you tear these people up. And, and that's the thing. I mean, it's just like the whole, I mean, I know we talk about the effects. Okay. So if you're a bad manager and you're one of the Scars, what happens? Sales go down. You don't have your customer service scores go down because people quit on you and people have to wait in line. Things don't get restocked as quick as they should. People don't understand that being a Scar or being a piss poor manager or just being a boss instead of a leader, how that affects your profitability.
Yes, if I can jump in there.
Go right ahead, sir.
I think that you can extend that problem all the way up the chain, because they're very often, the larger the retailer, this is definitely true. You have head office, they look at Excel spreadsheets centrally.
Correct.
They don't have a direct connection to the stores for the most part. And when they do have store visits, like we touched on earlier on, for some reason, the tradition over here and anywhere else that I know of is to roll out the red carpet and put on a pantomime for these feckin' store visits, which I don't understand. They never get the full picture. It's all smoke and mirrors. And the last time that, like, someone that works in a corporate office, if they ever worked on a checkout, it will, the last time that they spent more than an hour doing something like that was probably 25 years ago. So there is this disconnect in communication between the armchair generals in corporate and what's going on in the stores. So when stores become toxic, they don't see the Scars, they don't see the Mufasas or anything else positive or negative. They just see the ups and the downs on an Excel spreadsheet. And when they go and do an investigation, they get this bloody pantomime. And there is nobody better at pantomimes than Scars. They put on a show like no one else. and so often that can be covered up. But the culture has to change. People will not want to work in retail because if you, I bet you're definitely in this long enough to know this, Steve. I bet you there are stores that you worked in over the years where there was a cohort of people there that had been there for 20 years, staff, cashiers. That will not happen today.
No.
Because back in the day when I was first starting off in retail, there was still a kind of camaraderie in you felt part of the store that you worked in, and it wasn't uncommon for people to spend the vast majority of their working life even as an associate. That's not going to happen these days because it's not a favorable place to work. I think it's been fairly exposed as a bullshit. Like there's no career in retail. You end up like that Irish Connection idiot going around the country fixing stores for an opportunity that you don't fully understand because the retail Santa Claus is going to come down and give you a gift of something or other. What's going to have to happen, in my opinion, is that they invert that structure. That corporate needs to have a direct connection to the stores via a representative, be it union or otherwise. They need to have that personable human connection as to why a store is performing the way it is, positive or negative. That's my 2 cents.
I agree with you, but the problem is, I don't think they ever will.
No, listen. I may as well be smoking weed here. This is not going to happen. I like this. This is a pipe dream. But that's what needs to happen. I don't think it will. I think it'll all be fucking robots, and we'll all be working for Bezos probably. But I think if you want to get retail back to what it could be, because like it's a wonderful thing to walk in. I think you mentioned before in Jesus Craft Store, those things are the most well merchandised, best laid out places they could be. It's a nice experience to walk into and get good customer service and experience what a store is, and that's just it's just becoming more and more vanilla now. Everything is just a corporate stamp. Every store looks exactly the same. There's no flair. And it's probably not going to change. But if that's the case, I'm not surprised that nobody wants to start working at retail. And when they do, they want out at the first available opportunity.
Right. Well, to your point, Iron Maiden posted in the chat, toward the end of my retail career, I would straight up tell my associates who would complain about how retail really is, you're right. It's all fucked. Get another career. I'm not going to bullshit you and tell you that it's going to get better. This is it. And, and that's a big thing. And, connection, you saw our unemployment video or whatnot. And I think retail could be so much better than what it is, but because money rules everything, I think what we're seeing right now and what we're witnessing in real time, and we may look back at this, 20 years from now saying, wow, we knew it, but nobody else did. We're watching retail collapse because no one cares about, all anybody cares about are the stock shelf, the shelf stocked. Are we hitting our profit margins? And is our customer experience score good? That's all they're really worried about as far as the guys sitting in offices. They're not worried about the condition of their staffs. They're not worried about what they're paying their staffs. They're not worried about the abuse their staffs have to go through. And I do believe, and I want to throw this out there. So when we had our unemployment issue, I made the comment that, newsflash, people aren't going to be running back to those jobs like everybody says they are. Well, there was a report that came out like the next day because Alex says we're like the Simpsons and we predict stuff. But anyway, there was a report that came out the next day. It said, guess what? They cut off unemployment and people still weren't applying for those jobs. So I think the challenge for corporations is they've got two things they can do. They can either A, move everything digital and take employees out of the equation, which is going to cause another problem in itself. Okay. Or B, they're going to automate and they're going to use robots and stuff like that. I mean, self-checkouts, all those kind of things. I still feel like that, we're witnessing, when I look at it in big picture, we realize sitting back that retail's crashing right now. Retail is going through a fundamental change, and it's not a good one. Okay? So when you sit back and look at it, how much of that change being negative change has to do with these kind of managers that have been employed? If you had let's just say in a perfect utopia, you had every retailer in the world had a Mufasa running their store, it'd be totally different. People would work for less wages. Everything would boom. It all comes down to treatment right now. And, you know, and you were talking about Bezos. I don't know if you saw, Bezos stepped down from CEO at Amazon today.
Yeah, I did see that.
So he's going to be doing something different after they went and spent $8 billion buying MGM, Metro Golden Mayer today. So he owns 50% of James Bond. But anyway.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
But yeah. So, I mean, retail is in a decline. And it pains me to see all these people talking about, you know, well, this business is hiring, and this business is hiring, and this business is hiring. It's only temporary. I mean, if I was like just 100% Ebenezer Scrooge and didn't care about people, and all I was worried about is money, if I had a grocery store that was mine, that I ran, and I realized I could get rid of every hourly cashier for a flat fee, paying for 14 self-checkouts, from a business standpoint, I would do that. And that's why the management issue is so huge right now, because you want good people working for you. And if you're a scar or a shitty manager that doesn't take accountability, you're complicit. Because guess what? If you run everybody off and these companies keep folding because they can't get the right people processes in place, those management jobs are going to go away too. And those managers are going to blame everybody else in the world. They're never going to look in the mirror and say, well, you know, Matt, what? Maybe if I did something a little different, it'd have been okay. You know? Russell says, big picture is our country is fucked. Our money isn't worth anything. Inflation is horrific. Taxes are hard, etc. Well, I'm going to get on the inflation kick one more time. Like I said, retailers use this trick called cost push inflation. I'm telling you, profit margins, companies can take hits on profit margins and still make millions of dollars in profit to pay people more. They just don't want to. That's it. They just don't want to. And the government doesn't make them. If the government went in and said, hey, guess what? We think 30% profit's enough for you to be rich and wealthy. And they cut. Do you know how many? Like I said, I'll use that again. A Gibson Les Paul sold for $2,400. It costs $1,200 to make. Really? Come on, man. You can cut that margin down. You get 50% profit on that still and pay people more. So, yeah. All right. So we're sitting at an hour 23. Alex, you got anything you want to add real quick?
Nothing really. I went over everything I wanted to go over tonight.
Sweet. As always, Irish Connection is great having you on. I love communicating with you. I love having you on. I really enjoy the perspective from, across the pond, so to speak. And the sad part is, unfortunately, we realize it's very similar, but I do think that you guys have more protections over there than we have over here, to be honest with you. Let me ask you something real quick before we go. What is kind of like your time off, your average time off thing in retail over there? Like what, like if you're a full-time employee, how much like paid time off do you get?
Typically it would be about 4 weeks per year.
Really? Regardless of experience. So you go into a business full time and you get 4 weeks.
If you have a full-time contract.
Holy shit. Weeks. Do you know here, a lot of retailers, you go full time, you get nothing. After you're there for a year, you get a week.
Jeez. Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I know that I've commented a lot on the similarities between you guys, your retail experience over there and here. But there are some differences too, and typically you guys don't come out the better of it. We are better protected here, legally speaking, you kind of from a employee rights perspective. And like I think I've touched on once or twice too with the culture as well. I think that there's a much more cutthroat culture in the States when it comes to how they treat entry level employees in general, but in particular in retail.
So I've heard you mention a few times contract. So how
Yeah.
does employment work there? Like, okay, to give you an idea how it works here. All right. So let's say you fill out an application, you go interview, they decide they're going to hire you, and they say this is how much you make, you know, and that's it. You're not really locked in anything. There's no guarantee how many hours you're going to get. There's no nothing. Is there some sort of guarantee there?
There is now, but it's really low. It's 15 hours a week. We made 0 hour contracts illegal. But I mean, to be honest with you, 15 hours is just as bad. You can't pay rent with
Right.
that. So, because of course, if you do work 15 hours, you can't get unemployment. So sometimes you're worse off. So there are some protection there, but it's not a lot. It is one of the bigger problems, though, for a lot of kind of casual workers because as you all know, there's such seasonality to retail that your hours can fluctuate wildly, and it's not really a sustainable income for a lot of people. That's another reason why people aren't going for it anymore.
Right.
But yeah, you're better protected contractually speaking. It is you have probably more rights. I know it varies from state to state over there as well, but in general, you're probably better protected. But in terms of the hours, I mean, 15 hours is nothing.
No, it's not.
It's minimum wage 15 hours. I don't care where you live, you can't pay your bills.
Right. Now, if you do get a full-time job, is that contract? I mean, what is full-time considered there? Is it considered 40, 35, 30?
40.
So 40. So if you sign up, if you get hired for a full-time job, you get a contract that says you get 40 hours a week.
Yeah.
Oh, so you sign that contract so nobody can come in and say, "Hey, Irish Connection payroll's shot this week. We're going to cut you down to 30."
Oh yeah, no, it's correct. That's right. You're legally entitled to that as an employee. So there are a lot of. If you remember, I sent you one or two things on my ex-employer.
Right.
Now that's a particularly large retail chain in Ireland, and they were heavily unionized in the 80s and the early 90s. And a lot of that was because the workers wanted more solid contracts, and they got them. It took a while, but they ended up getting them. They've gone completely the other way now. They were all 0 hour contracts when I was employed there. But those people that were teenagers when they signed those full-time ironclad contracts are still there.
Oh wow!
Because it was not they're not obviously all still there, but it was quite beneficial. It wasn't a bad deal. In some ways it was damaging too because it's not sustainable to do that. This is why the us versus them kind of culture has to stop. That there needs to be some sort of work-life balance, because when all corporate wants to do is to make little minions out of the workers that'll just jump every time that they need them and go away when they don't need them and not pay them anything. The flip side of that is when you end up on strike, you end up with these contracts that are not sustainable because they were very, very difficult people to manage because they were there for so long. They're pretty much, you can't fire them unless you catch them like setting fire to a building or something. And they were not productive. They were just lazy. They knew you couldn't do anything, and yet they got the majority of the hours. So payroll was always a challenge there, and the people that came in last, they got screwed first and screwed hard.
So if you get a full-time, do they have like management salaries there? Like, for instance, we're going to pay you 50 grand a year, but we can work you as much as we want to, or is it all contractually based?
Okay. That's a little more nuanced. Legally speaking, you have a contract that says you work 40 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a manager on a salary that you don't necessarily clock in on an hourly basis, that means nothing. You
Gotcha.
will be working as much. You'll be working 60. I signed a contract for 40 hours. I was working 70, 80, sometimes 90.
Yeah, because once you hit salary,
Because,
that kind of like doesn't count.
yeah, they don't care. And actually, it's in their interest sometimes to hire people. Like if you pay someone 20% more and get 40% more hours out of them,
Right.
it's so there. Yes, from a contractual point of view, you are not obliged to work more than 40 hours. But good luck telling that to your DM,
Right.
because. But the reality is, as you well know, there's tricks up their sleeves. It's like, okay, that's great. I tell you what, your next job is, cleaning the roofs at midnight, and you're going to be doing that for the next 6 months. And you could do that for 40 hours a week. So, there's ways and means. There's like what that store, the kind of Irish Walmart that I used to work with, what they used to do is they would make you sign what is called a 32 county contract. So there's 32 counties in Ireland. Ireland is roughly the size of probably South Carolina, maybe a little bit bigger. So if they didn't like you, they moved you to the furthest store away.
Right.
It was in your contract. And they made you quit. Simple as that. So all of a sudden, overnight, you'll be told, right, you're in, and they'll just pick the store, the most inconvenient store away from you. And it was more or less, it was like what the mafia would do, like the kiss it death.
Wow.
Basically, you knew you were done. So like you could either quit, or you could put up with them moving you to various stores over the next coming months, that more and more inconvenient every time. So like there is a kind of mafioso kind of thing attached to them as well. So contracts, what I'm saying in short, I suppose contracts are not really worth the paper they're written on.
Got you. So, do you know what the exchange rate is for, you guys use the euro, right?
Correct.
So, as far as benefits go, like how much do your benefits run? Like, say for a family of 3, say husband, wife, and child, how much does that cost you? And is that like weekly, bi-weekly, monthly?
Okay, how much does it cost to run a household?
Well, just your insurance, like your health insurance.
Oh, okay. We have a dual system here, so there's public health and private healthcare system, and both are screwed. But if I could proportionalize it for you, okay? Somebody working minimum wage, all right?
Right.
If they have a partner that stays at home and minds, say 2 kids, you would have to work full time to pay probably just 70% of the rent. Things are pretty bad here when it comes to renting. So you're almost obliged to have a dual income.
Right.
So if you want any standard of living at all, you would need to have some sort of a dual income. You can make buy on one. If you're minimum wage, that's going to be really tough. That's when there may be some government assistance programs that will kick in there, because people are just falling below the poverty line because of the low wage. The minimum wage here is roughly speaking €10 an hour. That equates to about $12 an hour, maybe a little less. But I mean, the reality is, like,
do you know what our minimum wage here is?
I think, is it Florida's the worst? Isn't that like $7?
$7.25.
Yeah,
$7.25.
So you're looking at at 10
insane.
euros there. You're looking at $12, right? But I guess the bigger thing is, do you see a big fluctuation in like your cost of living there? I mean, like what kind of inflation do you see? Like, for instance, this is something we haven't really talked about. So like, in euros, how much is a loaf of bread where you're at?
Oh, the cheapest loaf of bread would be about 50 cents.
See, shit, dude.
I'll be right back.
That wouldn't be very nice, though. But like, say, an average loaf of bread might be about $1.50.
So the average loaf of bread there is $1.50.
Yeah.
So hold on a second. Let me do something here real quick. I just want to see something. I need some education in my life, sir. Sorry.
That's all right.
Let's see here. Do. Um. Okay, there we go. So currently speaking, €1 equals $1.22 in the United States. So like if you went out right now to buy a Coke, like a 20-ounce Coca-Cola, how much would that cost you?
About €3.
€3?
About that.
Wow.
Listen, I don't know ounces very well. We do liters over here.
Oh.
So is that the big bottle or like the one you hold?
The one you hold in your hand.
Okay. So you're talking about about half that. Well,
150. All right. So it's about the same here. So, let's look at something a little different. So, you said you have a PlayStation 4, right?
Correct.
How much is a new PlayStation 4 there?
Oh, my one's years old. I haven't looked recently, but I mean they're pretty cheap now. I think they're maybe $2.99.
Okay. Gasoline. How much is your gas a gallon right now?
Okay, we do liters, and it's extraordinarily expensive compared to the States. So I can't do the conversion from liters to gallons. If you have an app,
I can do that.
Just there, it'd be great. All right, cool. It's €145 per liter.
Okay, so liter to gallon. All right, so 1 liter is 0.26 U.S. liquid gallon. So you said 1 liter is how much?
145.
145. Hero, you're better at math than me. It sounds like their gas is cheaper. Am I wrong? It seems like it's cheaper. I don't know. I'm not real good at math. Wow, that's crazy. Hero says tangent time. The fuck today says, yeah, it's cheaper. Oh, okay.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my mistake.
Yeah. It's my, the things I've seen as far as like workers' contracts and whatnot. Yeah, if you're salaried, you get screwed anywhere in the world. I don't think there's anywhere in the globe that prevents that. Yeah. But the fact that you can be a contractually obligated 40-hour-a-week person and be locked into that and be a good employee that does not get this phone call one day, all of a sudden, I'm cutting you down to 30. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that is also very rare now. I mean, those are kind of the older contracts. I mean, the reality is most people are on shitty contracts in retail,
right?
At least on entry level. I suppose the one thing I've actually tried to do this research myself. I can't really nail it down yet. I presume most of you have heard of the Big Mac Index.
Yes, how much a Whopper costs?
Yeah.
I mean, a Big Mac. Excuse me.
It's quite good. It's a very rule of thumb. I like it. I mean, if you were to do some analysis on the average retail employee working, let's say 20 or 40 hours a week, when you started at age 18, what would they be able to afford versus the same situation today? Because I remember when I first started working retail, I was house sharing, as you do. So I had like a box room in a house where I shared with my friends. 1 week's wages covered my rent.
Wow.
That's not the case. That's not the case.
No,
now.
It's not.
And so I just think that if you're trying to proportionalize it, like working retail sucks more today because of that kind of thing. Because in proportion, we get tied up with like, oh, the minimum wage here, there, and everywhere. The important thing is to kind of proportionize it. How much groceries could you buy on, from a minimum wage paycheck back in the day versus 10 years ago versus 5 years ago versus now? It's going
You're 100% correct. Now, your grocery stores there or whatnot, have you ever experienced a thing where people would give, like, the baggers tips for taking groceries to their car?
We don't have baggers in general.
Oh, wow.
And no. No, we don't have baggers. It's just not a thing here. People bag their own things, or the cashier on the actual checkout would help out.
But people take out their own stuff.
Correct.
Oh, wow. See, when I was 18 years old, my first job was working in a grocery store, and I was a bag guy.
Mhm.
And what happened was back then, I mean, that was 1988. You bagged groceries, you put them on a cart, you took them out to the people's vehicle, you loaded them into the people's vehicle, and most times they would give you some sort of monetary tip for helping them out.
Well, that's nice. I've never had a tip in retail. Ever.
But
So-
but they stopped that about 25 years ago. 25 years ago, they decided no more tips. And because
Right.
honestly, I remember there were days I'd work an 8-hour shift and you'd get tips in like change. You'd get like 50 cents, a quarter. Somebody might throw you $1. Somebody might throw you a 5 spot or whatnot. But there were literally nights that I got off work that I made like almost $100 just taking people's groceries out of their car.
It's not a bad. That's
Yeah.
I'd probably do that today.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so everybody, we are sitting at 1:41, and I know Irish Connection, it is way past your bedtime. What time is it there right now?
It's 20 to 3 in the morning, and I'm working in 5
Holy
hours, so-
shit, dude! Thank you so
Oh
much for
my
being
God.
on.
Oh shit! No, 4 hours. Oh no.
Here's something I want to do. So I'll send you an email. I want to compare like wages and stuff between the euro and like benefits and stuff. It'll be a ways off. We'll say like in a month or so, we'll do an episode where we kind of compare and see what we're doing on both ends of the pond. If you're okay with that.
Yeah.
Cool.
100%.
All right. So everybody, thank you so much for watching. It's always great having him on. I love getting his perspective from across the pond because it is different. As some of you have heard this evening, I know we kind of went on a tangent because there's things that I haven't asked him that I wanted to know. So you guys get to suffer through that. So Alex, you got anything real quick?
Oh no, I'm good.
Irish
Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Connection. Good speaking. with
Irish,
you.
you got anything real quick?
No, I have no shameless plugs.
All right. Excellent. A little smack there at Alex. All right, everybody, you have a great night, and we will see you next time.